Hey everybody, Steven here. For today's video, I'm actually back at my house, not at the gym shooting today, so sorry for the mess, but I'm going to show you 3 different exercises that you can do at home. You don't need any equipment for this. You will need a chair and a pillow or something to stack the knee on, but other than that, you're not actually going to need anything. So if you're more advanced with the exercise and the movements that you do, this video is not going to be for you. This is really for somebody that is looking for technique information or can't afford a personal trainer and is wanting kind of that in-depth explanation of how some of these movements go. A lot of times you'll see the shorter videos, which are awesome, but they're not giving you the in-depth information that you need so that you're not potentially hurting yourself with this. So today we're going to do a box squat, we're going to do a high hinge, and then I'm going to show you the restorative exercise lunge variation, which is actually Katie Bowman's system, and I highly recommend looking into her stuff. She has tons of books online, she has a podcast, videos, all this stuff, but we'll actually look at her lunge variation with this as well. But to start, we're going to start with the chair here. So first thing that I would have you do is literally just like sit down how you normally would. And for most people, they're actually tucking their pelvis and they're putting their knees forward and they're coming down like this, and then they're rounding their back, putting excessive force on the lower back, and then a lot of times with the knees coming forward, we can put excessive force there. Now, it's not that you can't or shouldn't do that. It's just once I add load to this movement, dumbbells, a barbell on my back, I'm holding on to something, that's where it's going to be more important that you're watching what the body's doing, because now that we have load on the joints, we have the potential for an injury, okay? Or tweaking something, really. So with this, once I am seated, I want to sit back. I'm going to have a wider stance with my legs here. I'm going to make sure that my knee tracks to the middle of my foot. If you're at the gym, you won't be barefoot most likely. Since you can do this at home, I'm barefoot. I try to be barefoot as much as possible. It also allows me to view what's going on with my foot, specifically the toes, because they're going to want to lift really bad. So I'm going to check both. All right, so the kneecap is tracking to the middle of the foot. So I don't want, so my foot's turned way out, because now my knee is going this way and my foot is going that way, right? I want them so that they're both headed in the right direction right here. A lot of, another thing that'll happen is knee collapse, where we'll go here, so my knee is this way, and then my foot is that way. If I push out, I have a nice stacked 90-degree angle is what I'm aiming for. So now I'm here. That's our starting point. I'm going to breathe in through the nose into the belly. I'm going to make sure that I'm not rounding my back, so I'm not tucking my pelvis and I'm not rounding my shoulders like this. I'm going to grow as tall as I can. I'll actually begin to hinge from this position, pushing my knees out, keeping my head neutral, so I'm not tilting my head back here and I'm not tucking my chin. I want to stay neutral from here to here as best I can. You have a little bit of leeway with that, but I want to stay pretty neutral. I'll reach out in front of me and then I'll pull my hips up, forward, and I'll squeeze until I'm nice and tall, right? Vertical. From here, I'm squeezing my glutes, and I'm squeezing the rest of my body. In the functional range conditioning system, we call this irradiation. I'm really tense through my body in order to drive structure and stability through the movement. So I'm going to squeeze my glutes here. I'm going to be nice and tall and strong. When we reverse this, we're going to move the hips first. Typically, whichever joint moves first is going to take the most load. So I want to make sure that my hips go back first. Strongest joint in the body, the hips. So with this, I want to make sure that I'm putting most of that here. For a lot of people, they bend their knees first, and now that gets loaded up, and we don't want that, okay? So I want to hip hinge. I'm going to push back, and I'm going to take a deep breath in before I go. Push back. Reach the arms out, and they may be here, whatever is most comfortable for you. Back, 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 and then I'll sit down and back. The whole time I was driving out on the knees, you're gonna see a little bit of wavering, that's fine. What I don't want is complete collapse, right? Here, and then I'll sit nice and tall again. So I'm in that vertical line, I don't slouch once I get here. I'm creating rigidity through this movement so that as I'm here, I'm still tense. If I completely relax, it's easy, the pelvis just wants to tuck, right? I don't want to be in this position though, and then get back up. For my clients, I always tell them too, you're going to take this and you're going to translate it to how you're getting up and down from the chair that you're sitting in, most likely at work or when you get home and you're on the couch. You're going to translate this to that as much as you can. right? Now you're getting this structured version in. So instead of the small acute, I'm gonna spend 10 minutes on this maybe once a week, you'll just sprinkle it throughout the week, and then you'll understand and you'll improve much quicker. From here, still driving out, arms out, deep breath in, up, right through here, squeeze in my hips, coming forward. Okay, so this is actually a powerlifting movement, coming back down like that they use. So they have hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 pounds on their back, and they're doing this because they're utilizing the hip. For them, what they're watching too is that this shin always stays vertical, and you can film yourself in order to see that, because if it drops in, it's no longer vertical, it's at an angle. Driving out, super important. Breathing into the belly. Nice structure through the rest of this, okay? So for this, 15 to 20 reps. And the way you're gonna construct this is you'll do this first, okay? Then we're gonna move to a high hinge, and then we're gonna move to a lunge. And you can stack those. Now you could reorder it if you want to, but for this, we'll do 15 to 20 reps on this, all right? I'll show you this from the front also, so you can see kind of what I'm looking at. It's a nice boxed out shape here, okay? Knees are out. Check, we're nice and stacked, out, deep breath in, up, squeeze through the top. My arms could drop here if they need to, or they could just stay up. Back, 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 back. And then here, I stop vertical, I don't lean back more than that. And for this, like I said, film yourself. It's really important that you get a visual eye on this, and that's where a trainer can come in handy, because they can see and they can give you the small cues. Well, it's hard to see, right, what's going on through this. I don't want you constantly bringing your head like this as you're squatting, because I want that alignment. I can use my peripheral vision, but I don't want to change structure in order to check what's going on, okay? It does help if you have a mirror or something like that as well, but I found that typically filming yourself, going back, reviewing, I can improve that a little bit more. It definitely helps. Once I'm here, I always check in on everything again. Good, 90 degrees, good, good, good. Deep breath in. And then up. Make sure you're not plopping down super quick also. If we're gonna slow something down, it's gonna be the eccentric portion of the movement, or the negative portion of the movement, which is me sitting. This is where I wanna have control. And this is where I typically see somebody go, right? So focus on that. You might be plopping down because you don't have the strength necessary for that, or the mobility for that, but work on that and just be conscious of it, and you'll get a little bit better over time. The other big thing that we see here is that the toes lift. So people lift their feet up, they'll go like this. And that's just because the dorsiflexion, the range of motion with the ankle pulling up, is lacking, right? It's not as stable, it's not as strong. Because of that, your body's trying to find stability, so it's lifting up the toes. If you are doing that, a cue is to lift your toes up and then smash them to the floor and push your toes down as hard as you can. Now you're just gonna repeat everything. Right? Toes are grabbing that floor, all right? So that is the seated squat here, the box squat. Next, we're gonna get into a high hinge. I'm gonna use the On It Academy's cues for this. It's another certification that I have that they just had a really, really good cueing system. Because a lot of times it becomes super complex. This is just an easy way to think about this. So the first thing that you're gonna do is square your feet up about shoulder width, maybe a little bit wider, but they'll be straight. So the first portion of this, I put my hands here and they say Superman. So it's like Superman when he pulls open his suit and you see the symbol underneath. So I'm pulling like this, and all we're really doing is pulling the shoulders back, right? So Superman, okay? Instagram as I'm tilting my butt back, like you'll see with some of the Instagram girls that are showing off their butt, we're tilting the pelvis forward like this. So Superman, Instagram, and then I'm holding this, and their last cue is spread that ham, which is essentially just you're trying to moon somebody, right? So Superman, Instagram, and then from here, I'm keeping this and I'm bowing forward. This is a high hinge. I'll go as far as I can, keeping this structure, meaning there's zero rounding. I'm not tucking my pelvis, I'm not rounding my back. And then I'll come straight back up, okay? There's a subtle bend in my knees, if you'll notice. Very subtle, right? So here, I'm keeping that bend the whole time. I'm not bending my knees more. I'm also not locking my knees out and bowing forward, okay? So pay attention to the subtle bend in the knees. So Superman, Instagram, high hinge, spread that ham, bowing, bowing, bowing. I'm looking at my neck to make sure it's neutral, so I'm not like this, I'm not like this. I'm also checking my knees to make sure that I'm actually trying to push them out a little bit. Because what will happen when somebody lacks strength here, you'll see this. And we don't want that. If I pull these out, now I'm getting more out of the hamstrings, that hamstring glute tie-in. You are gonna feel your lower back, but it's not the primary driving force behind this. I really want more of the hamstrings and the glutes. And you might feel it stretching into your calves as well. So, one more time. Superman, Instagram, I'm gonna take a deep breath in. Spread that ham, I'm bowing, and you'll know your limit because you'll have to do something like rounding your back to go forward. So if I hit here and that's all I can do, that's it. I also don't want to experience any pain with any of this. We don't push through pain, we move around it. So if I have to stop here because beyond that is painful, that's where I'm at. That's as much as I bow, right? For some people it might be more, yeah? So I'll bow forward and then I check the knees and then I'll come back up. This will be 12 to 15 on this, okay? So that is the high hinge. You also hear that called, like, if I had weights in my hand, it'd be like a stiff-legged deadlift or a Romanian deadlift. You'd hear different verbiage with that, but that's what that is. And then the last one, we're gonna do lunge. So we have a split stance here. You could also call it a split squat if you wanted to. But from this kneeling lunge position, I wanna make sure that this is 90 degrees and this is 90 degrees. So my knee on the down leg here is stacked underneath. A lot of people do this, and we're getting more of a stretch on that. We don't want that. I want to pull this directly underneath my knee here. I'm loading up on my foot. I'm trying to make sure that that is tracked from the knee straight, so my foot isn't tilted way out or tilted way in, putting excess of strain on that. So we want to make sure that is as straight as we can get it, 90 degrees or as close to that with the front leg. Once I'm here, a lot of people like to stay like this where their pelvis is tilted forward. We actually want to tuck it on this one. So the previous two exercises, I said we're not going to do that. Now this one, we're actually going to tuck. So now I'm going to take my pelvis and I'm going to tuck it. The second you do that, you should feel this quad turns on a lot. The front part of the hip flexors do as well. I'm nice and tall. I can put my arms out to my side. If I had dowel rods, if I had PVC pipes, I could hold on to it, or if I had a countertop that I needed to hold on to, whatever it may be, you could hang on to something. And from here, I'm trying to go straight up, right? Up like this. Once I'm here, I want to make sure that the feet stay flat. I'm on the ball here. Don't let the foot drop out, which is super common. Nice and tall, squeezing the glute, both glutes here. And then I'm simply going to lower back down. Boom, okay? I don't want to fall through that space. For some people, they're like, I can't go that low, that hurts my knees. I can bolster, right, as high up as I need. Your bolster may be here, right? And you're just going up and then down to that. That's fine. Bolster to where you're at, right? So we don't want to push into a position where we're so unstable we have the potential for an injury or we're experiencing pain, right? I've seen bolsters that are really, really high and that person isn't going quite as low as somebody would say that they need to go, but that's where they're at, and that's fine. They'll build strength in that position over time, and then we can take a little bit off of it, and then eventually they'll make their way down, okay? So, show this from the front. I am squared up also, so I don't want any shifting. Nice and tall, radiate, straight up, looking at the back foot to make sure that it's straight. I'm squared up like this, and then I'll simply come down, and I wanna have control through that. Another way that I can do this is in a door jam. If you're like, dude, I don't know if and I'll do it on the wall here in a second. That one's gonna be rough, but you can't do it on a door jam or the corner of a wall. And people are like, I don't know if I'm going straight or not. What we do is we get into the corner here. So now I'm gonna be here with my back placed against this. A lot of people push their ribs out. I can pull this down, stack up. I know I'm squared up, right? So my tailbone all the way, and I don't put my head, but all the way to my upper back here, and then I would glide up this. Right, almost hit that, and then I would come back down, keeping my body up against that. That's a scale that you can use. I could still bolster underneath this as well. Now for that one, it's trickier. I'm only gonna say 6 to 8 per side, because that's a much more difficult movement. Based off scale, it might be a little bit easier for some, but they can't go lower, and that's okay. Still stick with that 6 to 8. So all of these, the box squat, the high hinge, and then the lunge, and that's 6 to 8 per side. You're gonna do 3 to 4 rounds of that, okay? Take about a minute, 2 minutes after each group to just recoup. If you feel like you need a little bit more time, that's fine. But you'll literally do these back to back, then you'll take a breather, and then you'll repeat that next round. Like I said, 3 to 4 total rounds of all of these exercises. So we had 15 to 20 on the box squat there, or the seated squat. We had 12 to 15 on the high hinge, and then we're gonna do 6 to 8 off of the lunge per side, right? And when I give you a rep range like that, typically what I mean is if you get to 6, but you can physically go to 8, you have to go to 8, right? If you get to 6 and you're like, man, my form's really bad, I don't know, call it at 6, okay? So that is it. This is just a really good, solid home leg workout that you can do, taking these movements and utilizing them in other places also, right? How I actually sit down, how I might bow forward to grab something, how I actually get up from the ground from a kneeling position, which is also how I walk upstairs and how I hike to a small degree. So hopefully that helps anybody out there looking for a home workout that they can start with. And this is really a starting point for everybody, okay? So starting here, I would do this 2 to 3 times a week to start, and then you can build and progress from there. So if you guys have any questions on any of the movements, or I need to do a lengthier explanation, please let me know in the comment section below. I will get that made for you guys as well on that. If you like the video, hit the like button for me. And then if you want to continue to follow along with all of my content, hit the subscribe button for me. Thanks so much for watching.